Hallelujah, baby! This is the best piece of Vancouver Canucks news that we could have seen. Because what I wanted to do was highlight a comment made by Irfan Ghaffar on a recent episode of the Daily Faceoff Rundown show regarding the Vancouver Canucks and what their long-term plan seems to be. We all understand that the Vancouver Canucks right now are the worst team in the National Hockey League. They have an 11-point lead for first in the Tankathon odds over the Calgary Flames. Vancouver has 48 points, Calgary has 59, Chicago has 61. Yes, there is a threat that teams like Toronto, for example, could potentially lose out without Austin Matthews and then find themselves near the top of the draft lottery and then win. That would be an absolute travesty. But the Vancouver Canucks have the first overall odds at the highest rank, 25% to get Gavin McKenna at this point. But it turns out that Gavin McKenna sweepstakes may not be the only sweepstakes we have to be paying attention to over the next few years. We have sweepstakes for Landon Dupont and Maddox Schultz. Take a look at this post made by NHL Rumor Report. Irfan Ghaffar on DFO Rundown March 11th said this about a Vancouver Canucks rebuild. The ownership is fully on board. The ownership knows that it's going to take at least 5 years until the Canucks are really competitive again. Praise be to the hockey gods above and to the Aquilinis, because the Vancouver Canucks are going to rebuild long term. Hell yeah, baby! One Gavin McKenna is not going to be enough to fix this Vancouver Canucks franchise. And in fact, there has been that idea floated around by some NHL writers and scout analysts as to whether or not Gavin McKenna would actually benefit from a second year in the NCAA, especially if he's drafted by Vancouver, for example. The Canucks are going to be absolutely terrible. You do not want to mess up this upcoming draft. Whether you take a Stenberg, whether you take a McKenna, whether you take a guy who's ready or a guy who's got more upside, you cannot mess up this pick. You can't. The Vancouver Canucks have to take a guy, and that guy has to become a franchise-changing superstar. For Stenberg, you can say maybe it's actually a lot more difficult to keep him in the SHL, considering the fact that he was already really good over there. But hey, if Stenberg ends up coming over to the NHL right away, who's to say he's not going to suffer through some of the same things that Elias Pettersson has been going through lately? Can Stenberg be that much of a game changer immediately to turn the Canucks' fate around? We've seen Connor Bedard in Chicago. That guy went through some pretty tough growing pains. And it's not like, oh, Bedard would have benefited from another year in the WHL. I think we all kind of understood that this guy was absolutely at the peak of what he was capable of doing before his NHL play started. But there were already conversations last year and 2 years ago about Connor Bedard maybe getting put into a bad spot with Chicago. The team is so bad and Bedard is so talented and he's getting crushed because of it. 61 points in 68 games played in his first year, that's fine. But Bedard took a while to get going the next few seasons. Now this year he's been really, really good, but he has missed some time, and ultimately, the Chicago Blackhawks, they're still not particularly great. They are still third worst in the National Hockey League. I guess that can lend itself to the idea that says, oh, well, look at Bedard. He's over there in Chicago, he's doing well, and the Blackhawks still suck enough to get a top pick this year, so maybe it's fine if Vancouver decides to play a Gavin McKenna or whatever. And I think that's also a fair point to bring up too. I just wonder if a guy like McKenna, for example, would benefit more so from another year in NCAA play, especially compared to playing on a dog-water Vancouver Canucks team. Thinking about some of these other names, though, this is where the beauty of the 5-year rebuild comes in. Because, take a look at what Cam Robinson said about Landon Dupont for next year. Here are his stats since January 30th. 20 games played, 8 goals, 28 assists, and a +29. Landon Dupont, since the start of February, has been scoring at a 122-point pace over a full 68-game season. Again, he is a draft -1 defenseman in the WHL, and is the third most productive draft -1 defenseman in WHL history. Take a look at that. He just went out there and beat out Jim Benning, who was legitimately a talented hockey player in the 70s and 80s for the WHL's Portland Winterhawks and inevitably the Vancouver Canucks. But Landon Dupont is looking to be a generational defenseman in the WHL. Also, the fact that him and his family cheer for the Canucks. Like, what is it with all these Vancouver Canucks fans coming into the draft? Bedard, Celebrini, Landon Dupont, McKenna even. And then you also got the guy next year, Maddox Schultz out of Medicine Hat, Alberta. He's not a Canucks fan, it looks like, but he is a WHL product right now. 27 points in 33 games played as a 16-year-old. He actually turned 16 yesterday. Belated happy birthday to Maddox Schultz. But Schultz is the projected top prospect in 2028's NHL Entry Draft. If Vancouver can suck so hard and get Gavin McKenna, Landon Dupont, Maddox Schultz, not only would you be restocking the cupboard with Canadian prospects, but you would be stocking them up with some of the most talented guys that we have seen come into the WHL the past few years. McKenna was absolute fire last season. 129 points in 56 games played with the Medicine Hat Tigers. Now he's way over a point per game in Penn State. I'm also thinking that, like, you think about the style of play and the tendencies, the controversy from this previous campaign, I honestly wouldn't be opposed to Vancouver drafting McKenna and leaving him in the NCAA for another year. You do not need to get this guy into the NHL, have him play on a terrible forward core, and then have him score 40 points in his first season, and everybody's going to question whether or not he's actually good enough to be a franchise talent. Let him dominate the NCAA again. Let the Canucks get another bad season and get another draft pick like Landon Dupont, and then have both of them make the team in 2027, 2028. If Chicago is teaching us anything, you can still have top-tier talented young pieces on your team and still suck, and so 2028, go out there and get Maddox Schultz. This is a really great plan, and it seems like Canucks ownership is on board. It's going to take at least 5 years until they're competitive again. No more win-now moves, no more Oliver Ekman-Larsson trades, no more sacrificing the long-term financial cap flexibility of this team for anchors that hold them back. This doesn't mean, don't sign veterans. Don't sign them to short-term deals where they can come over and manage the locker room. That's not what I'm saying. I think those contracts are actually fine. You can't just ice a team of all AHL guys. You need some NHL caliber players. But why commit extreme money and term to them? Just give them money in the short term, 1-2 year deals, and then by the time the team is competitive with Dupont and McKenna and all these other guys, those old guys will expire. Like, it's pretty good GM mode stuff, right? So with all that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the Vancouver Canucks ownership finally feeling like it's going to take a few years to be competitive? Not making the playoffs next year like we had seen out of some people, but an actual long-term rebuild. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.